Module 1, Section 3. In this video, we're going to concentrate on Objective 4. Objective 4 is estimate the difference of whole numbers by rounding. If you remember, difference is the answer to subtract problem, right? So we're subtracting whole numbers, but we're just estimating because we're going to be rounding. Okay, you'd like to take out a loan for a car, and the car costs $14,497, and you have a down payment of $3,824. So use each method of rounding to estimate the amount of money you will need for the loan. Okay? So just a little clarification on what that's actually saying is the price of the car is this, but you already have this much. That's going to be taken away from this. Once you figure out what that amount is, then you will get a loan for that new amount. And I don't know too many banks that are going to give you a loan for like $2,347. You know, they're going to want to round it off. So that's what we're going to do. So first of all, we are going to round using front end rounding, which means we're going to round to the very first place value of each number. So the 14,497, you're looking at this first 4, it's going to round down, right? So this is going to be, I'm going to put it over here so we can kind of line them up, 10,000. And then we're going to subtract. The 8 is higher than 5, so it's going to round the 3 up. So 4,000 for a total of 6,000. Okay, now let's do rounding to the thousandths place. Oh, it looks like they have kind of a weird typo thing going on here, don't they? Okay, so we have rounding to the thousandths place, and then here's a different one, rounding to the hundreds place, and now here's rounding to the tens place. Okay, so we have 2 things we have to do here. So we're going to have 4 choices instead of just 3. Okay, let's do the thousandths place though, like we were talking about. So clear this information there, and here we go. Thousandths place, we have the 4 and the 3 are in the thousands. So first number, we're looking at the 4 after the 4, and it's going to round to 1,400 because the 4 with the arrow pointing to it, that one is less than 5, so it rounds down. So 14,497 rounds down to 14,000. And now we're going to look at this next number. 8 is going to round up, right? So that rounds the 3 up to a 4. So 4,000. Subtract those 2, so 14 minus 4 is 10. So it's 10,000. Okay, now we're going to do the hundreds place. So let's get rid of this and find the number in the hundreds place. So hundreds is 4 and 8, right? Okay, so the numbers afterwards. So looking at this first point, whoops, we have the 9 is going to round the 4 up. So this becomes a 5. Those are zeros, and the 14 stays. So we're going to have 14,500. And this next one, the 2 is going to round down, so the 8 stays as is. So we have 3,800. Okay, now that's not so easy to figure out, is it? Okay, so down here at the bottom, I'm just going to subtract them, but I'm going to be using one of the methods that we learned here just a little while ago. They're both hundreds, however, so I'm just going to do 145 minus 38, and then add 2 zeros after it to be 100. Okay, so if I did 145 minus 30, and then the additional 8 there, so 145 minus 30 is 115. And 115 minus 8, still kind of weird, but 15 minus 8 is 7, right? So this is going to be 107. So 107, and then put those 2 zeros back because I took them off here when I was doing that computation. Okay, so to me, that estimate was harder than it needed to be. So we don't really want to use that one because estimating should save time. And the last one here, rounding to the tens place. So rounding this first one to the tens place and this one, so we're looking at the 7 on the first number and the 4 on the second number. So the first number rounds to 14500, right? Because the 7 is going to round the 9 up, which rounds the 49 to a 50. Okay, next number. The 4 rounds the 2 up. We're over here. No, it doesn't. It rounds it down, doesn't it? Sorry. So the 4 rounds the 2 down. Now, when I say it rounds the 2 down, it's not really rounding the 2. It's rounding the number itself, right? So it leaves it as a 2. So minus 3,820. And once again, this particular problem isn't much simpler than this one that we started with up here. Okay? So I'm not even going to worry about figuring that answer out because that's not the method I'm going to choose to use. Because if I was to round to the nearest 10, I may as well just figure out the original problem. It doesn't save me any time. It doesn't really give me an estimate very far, does it? Okay? And for that same reason, I'm also not going to use rounding to the nearest hundreds. So let's look at the last two possibilities that we have. We've got these two right there. And if you're looking at the answers, those are pretty different, aren't they? So which one is more accurate? You can see that these two numbers are pretty much the same. Okay, so these are the ones that we're looking at. So we have 10,000 and 14,000. Looking at your original number, it's closer to the 14,000, isn't it? Okay, so rounding to the thousands place gives us more accurate of an answer. Okay, so in that case, this one is the best to estimate that difference. Okay, on example 5, they've given you 4 completed examples, and then you have 4 that you get to do. Okay, the spacing is kind of strange, so I've added those green boxes so that you can see the difference between the original problem and their explanation. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit too, which hopefully will help. Okay, so here we go. Estimate by rounding to the nearest 1,000. So they don't give you the actual number, you have to write it out. So 1,705, so there you go. And 946 is right here. And we're rounding to the nearest 1,000, so that's this number here, and 0 out here in the front. Okay, so the 7 is going to round the 1 up to a 2, as you can see here. And the 9 is going to round the 0 up to a 1. So 2,000 minus 1,000, your answer is 1,000. Okay. Next part. Estimate by rounding to the nearest hundred. Okay, so the number in the hundreds place is right there. Okay, so the 4 means we're going to leave the 3 alone, so it becomes 1300. The 7 means we're going to raise the 5 up to a 6, so there's 700. And now 1300 minus 600 equals 700. So that's their answer. Okay, on C, we have front end rounding. Okay, and I like to hyphenate that. So, okay, front end rounding. So we're using the first number and looking at the second number. The 8 rounds up, so the 6 becomes a 7. And the next number, the 2 is your first number, and whoops, and the 3 rounds down, so the 2 is going to stay. Everything else becomes 0. So by dropping the 3,877, it's rounding down to 20,000. And the last one, front end rounding, the 1 is going to round down, so we're going to leave the 10,000 as is. So 70 minus 20 is 50. 50 minus 100 is 40,000. 50 minus 100, where'd that come from? 50 minus 10. All right, the last one here. Okay, estimate using front end rounding. And now we have to find out what their numbers are. So 53,974. Okay, so there's your 53,000, comma, 974. Okay, and then 4,000, comma, 502, 502. Front end rounding. Okay, so I'm going to erase what we have here so I can make our rounding marks. All right, so front end rounding. The 3 rounds down, so we're going to leave the 5 alone. 50,000. Now on the next number, the 5 rounds up, so we're going to raise the 4 up to a 5. So 50,000 minus 5,000 is 45,000. Okay, here are your 4. So again, I'm going to zoom in. Okay, estimate by rounding to the nearest 10,000. Okay, 10,000 is the 3 and the 9, right? Okay, so we're going to round using those numbers right there. So this first number, the 1 is going to round down, which means we leave the 3 as is. So we have zeros on everything after that. So 330,000 minus. Now the 2 is less than 5, so that means it's going to round down, and we leave the 9 as is. So 190,000. Okay, so now I'm going to do like we did on a previous problem. I'm just going to do 330 minus 190 and leave all those extra zeros off. Okay, and while I'm at it, I can still cancel those. So I have 4 zeros that I've dropped off. So 33 minus 19. Okay, so let's say I do 33 minus 10, and then the 9. So 33 minus 10 is 23, minus 9. And now I'm going to break the 9 into a 3 and another 6. So 23 minus 3 is 20. 20 minus 6 is 14. Okay, so that's all the in-your-head stuff that we did in a previous objective. Haven't learned the algorithm technically yet, so I'm not going to use it for you yet. Okay, so Now remember, we have 1 0 we dropped here and 3 here, so I have 4 zeros after the 14. So this is 140,000, 140,000. Okay, so that wasn't too simple because of all of this stuff. So rounding to that particular place value for this particular problem is not something I would choose. Okay, this one, rounding to the nearest 1,000. Example F. So 1,000 is the 7. 3 is going to round down, so it leaves the 17 as is. So I'm going to go off to the side here since we don't have much space. And then we're subtracting. 2 is in the thousands place, and the 0 rounds down, so the 2 is going to stay. So 17,000 minus 2,000 is going to be 15,000. Okay, I zoomed in on your last one here. So we need to write the numbers out for this particular problem. So we have 19,607. Okay, so 19,607. And we're doing the difference, so it's a subtract problem. 333. Okay, using front end rounding, so we want to round to this place using the 9. 9 rounds up, so that means we're going to change to 20,000. Minus. Front end rounding, the first 3, we're going to use the second 3. 3's round down, so that number becomes 300. Okay, now this one is a little difficult because of all the zeros in the weird places. 20,000 is 19,000 plus 1,000, right? And then the 300 comes down. So now if I have 1,000 minus 300, so like 1,000 minus 300 is 700, right? So 19,000 at 1,700 is 19,700. And again, because we haven't done the subtract algorithm, that's quite a bit of work for estimating. And if you had a choice, I just wouldn't choose to do it that way because it's a mess. And I realized I did something up here that I want to show you. Okay, right here on the pink one. Are they equal? They're not, are they? Okay, so you should never use an equal sign in between two things that are not equal. And if you remember, we talked about the little squiggly equal sign. This means approximately equal or rounded. Another symbol you could use is just like an arrow. Just don't use an equal sign because they're not equal, and I apologize for doing that. Okay, this is the end of this video. So we'll see you for the next one.